Well, with a name like this, she's certainly going to be dynamic. Kristen Love. Kristen Love is a freshman, sophomore, thank you, sophomore economics and political science double major from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Kristen is currently serving as freshman council vice president. She is also involved with Howard University's freshman leadership. Her dorm stand team and student ambassadors. Her favorite quote is from Michelle Obama. Success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives. Kristen Love. Lyle is on track with a concentration in finance. He is a member of the Howard University School of Business Executive Leadership Honors Program. He serves as the executive treasurer of the Howard University debate team, the senior vice president of the Finance and Investment Club, and he serves as vice chair of the Howard University Senate. Aman has obtained his real estate license, and he works with commercial and residential real estate endeavors. Aman's goal is to ultimately recreate the Black Wall Street through institutional asset management by developing real estate and cultivating the urban communities. Aman believes that in order to in America, that it is his job to uplift humanity using finance. Last, never least, our debaters, Carolyn Williams. Carolyn hails from the Magic City, Birmingham, Alabama. In pursuing a degree in legal education with a minor in political science, she has been very active at Howard University, serving on the Hilltop Policy Board, Undergraduate Student Association, National Association of Student Affairs Professionals, Vice President, School of Communications, Student Council, and Mock Howard University debate team. Now, at this time, we would like to acknowledge the 17th president of Howard University, Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick.
Hope to win, but I think as we look at African Americans and as we look at Africa, I think the future hands of these is exactly what we should be celebrating, and I look forward to what happens tonight. I know what's going to happen today with the debate, because the real HU will win this, correct?
An outstanding student, Gavin Regans, president of the Howard University mock trial team, will introduce.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Alvin Thornton has been a member of the Howard University Political Science faculty for 36 years. Additionally, he has served as the senior academic advisor to the president of Howard and chief academic officer, education and political behavior. In 1999, he was appointed by the governor of Maryland as the chair of the state's Commission on Education Adequacy, Equity, and Excellence, also known as the Thornton Commission. Dr. Thornton has received his Bachelor's of Arts from Morehouse College and his PhD at HU.
Universities for giving me an opportunity to serve as the moderator for today's debate. My role is to introduce the rules of the debate and to ensure that it has been designed to proceed in. The rules of the debate. The Prime Minister will introduce their side. A member of the government will offer the first rebuttal, 8 minutes. A member of the opposition will offer their first rebuttal, followed by a leader of the opposition which will defend their first rebuttal and rebut. And finally, the Prime Minister, 5 minutes. During the discussion, there will be points of information. These are: the Speaker has an option to accept or decline the point of information. In most styles, points of information can be made during the first, cannot be made during the first and last minute of each speech or during the rebuttals. And finally, to see to it that the debate is orderly. Your applause until the end. I know that'll be very difficult to do because of your strong support for your teams. We also have a timer to ensure that the debate proceeds in a timely manner. The role of the timer is to time the speaker to ensure fairness, to give the speakers a 1-minute warning with the ringing of a bell or a signal once his or her time is up, and finally to prevent the debaters from exceeding the time allocated to them by doing otherwise. Let us begin. The first resolution is the University will support the resolution. I would now ask the Prime Minister. Please.
Good afternoon, ladies. Political science major on the pre-law track, leadership studies minor. Then during the next affirmative speech, my partner will address the arguments that brought up, point out the laws, and uphold our case. We cannot change the cards we are dealt, just how universities. Unfortunately, discrimination are things that we cannot change. But what we can do is demand respect. How do you demand affirm, resolve, apply electability politics in response to racial violence? Before I begin my case, I would like to introduce today's debate should live positively and how we should define Black American culture. Racial violence is defined by the Institute of Race Relations as harassment of or violence towards someone who is perceived by the assailant to be racially or ethnically different, and where evidence would indicate that someone of a different ethnicity in the same place and similar circumstance would not have been attacked in the same way. Now, moving along to the substance of my case, I will offer 3 contentions to justify my stance in today's debate. My first contention will highlight the misconception that people have about respectability politics. My second contention will further explain my theme for today's debate. And lastly, my third contention will more specifically address the resolution. Contention number 1, people miss the real nature of respectability politics. Before I begin explaining the that people have about the women's movement in the Black Baptist Church, these women saw respectability as political and used their discourse in their missionary, social, and political work. An essential part of their focus was to uplift the Black community while perpetuating a sense of solidarity and philanthropy. These respectability politics gained popularity and organization nationwide and solidified into a regular part of black life. For example, the Chicago Defender, one of the country's most important black media outlets, advocated these rules by publishing them to enlighten blacks about them. Now on to the main premise of my case. People miss the real nature of respectability politics. People have argued that respectability politics want blacks to act more like whites so that we can be accepted by them. People have argued that respectability politics are a form of racial policing. It's not about rules for whites or to side with the rest of society. I do it for myself. And that's exactly how blacks should look at this situation. We practice them for ourselves so that we can uplift our own. We should follow these rules for blacks to uplift our race and act in a way that makes us proud. For example, I don't know about you, but when I see a black man or a woman in a suit, I smile. I feel a sense of support. If we try and act respectably, we can positively influence our youth to be respectful. Many people have made a play about our race. But when we beat the odds and when we stereotype, it's nothing. To the ugly truth. As previously truth, which is my theme, is reality that is difficult or painful to accept. But because it's known to be true, we accept it. We know that in order to be respected by our counterparts, then we have to act respectably, dress respectably, and speak respectably. Now, is that right? Is that just? Absolutely not. We have to apply to the fit in. We shouldn't have to prove our existence and prove that we belong. We should just for violence. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the ugly truth. This is the hard reality we have to face. We know that profiling, discrimination, and racial violence are alive and well into society, and they don't seem like they will disappear any time. We know that blacks don't get as many opportunities as whites. We know that blacks have to work twice as hard for things that are often hated by whites. It's a hard pill to swallow. Accepted. Education. We nice and appropriately, but not for them, for ourselves. To uplift our communities and positively influence our youth. If we apply respectability politics to our daily lives, it gives whites no excuse to disrespect us. They'll no longer be able to use the excuse, well, he was dressed like a thug, or she doesn't know how to act accordingly in public, or they don't care about education. We should demand respect by giving them no other choice but to respect us. Condition number 3, answer resolution. I cannot say that respectability politics can single-handedly eradicate racial violence, but the wording of the resolution. It does not say respectability politics will end racial violence. It says we should apply them in response to racial violence. And I say, why not? Respectability politics may not be the only way to deal with racial violence, but it's definitely something we should try. Please ask yourself, what's wrong with being respectable? We desperately need to do something to combat racial violence, especially at a time like now, because it's happening so often. It seems like every time I turn on the TV, I have to hear about another one of our own falling victim to racial violence. It's sick, it's sad, it's draining, and it's crucial that we do something. We need to explore every single avenue that we have so that we can start uplifting our own. And we can uplift them with respectability politics. But it takes a village, ladies and gentlemen. The entire community has to get on board. It's not going to make that much of a difference if only a few blacks practice respectability politics. If we all apply them, then we all can make a difference. And as previously stated in my second contention, we should demand respect by giving them no other choice but to respect us. We should eliminate their excuses for racial profiling and violating us. And ladies and gentlemen, it is for these reasons that I urge your vote for affirmation in today's debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. We will now hear from the Leader of the Opposition.
Welcome to the Howard versus Hampton debate. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge some distinguished guests today. President, Dr. Fred, thank you for your continued. The Provost, Dr. Ra, we also would like to thank you for your support as well. To the Hampton University debate team, welcome to the real HU. And to my HU, guys and family, thank you guys for coming. This House believes that Africans, Americans, should not apply respectability politics as a response to racial violence. You see, Hampton stood before you and gave you the fake definition of respectability politics. Essentially, what respectability politics is a set of rules African American imposes on itself in order to see. Essentially, what is that we want to adapt to these societal values that mainstream society has set. You see, who else is calling us thugs? Who else are saying that we are deemed invaluable? It's mainstream society. So why would we conform to the values that they've set for us? Why would we conform to the people who have enslaved us? Conform to the people who enforce Jim Crow? Conform to the people who enforce police brutality? So essentially, respectability politics won't save us because we reside in two different societies. You see, a social problem is an issue that exists between two different races and one society. But a racial problem is an issue that exists between two different races and two different societies, although the societies may live side by side. Although we live side by side, white America, we do not exist in their society. Therefore, we should not conform to their societal values. You see, African American societal values tell you it does take a village to raise a child, which leads me to my next point, is that respectability politics separates. You see, respectability politics is a mechanism used by the black elites to police the black poor. We have black elites who stand on national television and I quote and state that the black community does not value a thug or an idiot. It's stated that the black community have each other from successful because of the next black American. You see, these values and remarks like that do not build up. It becomes the black elites looking down on the black poor and saying, who's more oppressed? You see, I don't know whether Hampton realizes or not, but you can't dress up racism. No matter how eloquently I speak, no matter how well I dress, all that matters is the color of my skin. And respectability politics will not save us because it does not stop racial profiling. Racism is the true issue in America, and when we apply respectability politics, we take away from that. Instead of exposing mainstream America for what they have done to us, we expose our own. We tell them that they're not good enough. We tell them that the reason that a 12-year-old is shot and killed by a police officer is because he's not respectable. What did it matter what he was wearing? He was innocent. What did it matter when we have police officers being filmed to stop his death? Please tell me how I should dress to stop the police officer from dragging me out of my vehicle. You see, it's racial profiling. Racism is behind that. It's not the way we dress. It's not the way we carry ourselves. It's the societal values that therefore, why would we come to that society? Why? You see, Hampton refused to acknowledge that that's what the conforming to mainstream society. The same society that's never respected the black individual. You see, let's look at some people who represent respectability politics. You know, we heard about the history of respectability politics, but as we know, something called evolution, and respectability politics has evolved. walk in a different direction when you're walking. Respect yourselves. If you want me not to jump off an elevator when you step on, respect yourselves. You see, I take the Michael Eric Dyson approach. I don't talk about raising the African Americans' pants. I talk about raising their dreams, their goals, their ambitions, and their pants will follow. I want to focus on uplifting my community, not policing my community. I want to focus on the African American values that we have and continue to establish those. The ones that say, yes, it takes a village to raise a child. The one that says, if you want to go quickly, go by yourself. But if you would like to go far, go together. The ones that realize that, yes, we represent each other, therefore we must move the unit. You see, it's important that we realize that issue and dividing our community will not help. A divided house cannot and will not stand. So respectability politics does nothing but stop our movement. You see, when we look at respectability politics, we also have to remember the people that tell African American beings that their names is what gets them into prison. Their names keeps them from getting jobs. You know, their names, we now become policing each other and believing that African sounding names are not good enough. That if you name your child John Quavius, he's automatically right to be in prison. That is not what the black community needs. In 2015, we see over and over again that it's open season on black lives. They're killing our children, they're killing our women, and they're killing our black men. And at the heart of that is racism and racial profiling. And if you want to move together as a unit, and when we apply respectability politics, we're essentially internalizing what mainstream society thinks of us. We're now teaching our children that, yes, you're a thug. Yes, you're not good enough. The way you carry yourself is not good enough. You see, we can look to Henry Louis Skip Gates, a Harvard professor that was arrested outside of his home wearing navy blue and a red because somehow put the description of burglar. How come that does not deem the respect that an average American president would be deemed? He even said that if he had a son, he would look like Trayvon. What does that tell you? Respectability politics does not save us because we cannot dress up racism. So, for the reasons that, one, respectability politics separates the black community. Two, respectability politics conforms to a society that never even saw us as being valuable. And three, that respectability politics does not stop racial profiling, which is at the root of racial violence. This, Howard University, the Mecca, the center of black excellence, negates the resolution. Thank you.
Let us now hear the first rebuttal from Hampton University. Excuse me. Audience, please, out of respect for the debate team, please hold your applause down so that they have time to debate.
And our lovely opponents here for speaking so eloquently, welcoming us so warmly. They've been great. Just 1 minute. Yeah. Now, my opponent spoke well and passionately about a few very, very important issues. But what I want to draw your attention to are some of the issues with the duality that she is trying to represent. She's separating herself through her words. This isn't reality. Through her words, she is separating the black community into, okay, these are these people trying to police the lower class, or the whites and the blacks live separately. There is no coexistence. The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, that we are us living together. We, at all times. My opponent says, why should we conform to those that have opposed us, that have oppressed us, that have enslaved us? The reason is, ladies and gentlemen, because it is for the preservation of life, for our children, for our brothers and mothers. It is easy to stand from on high and say, stay together and regardless of the consequences, regardless of the lives that may be lost. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is not valuing and preserving the lives of our own. It is short-sighted. It is irresponsible. My name is Senator Jay. I'm an economics and political science double major from the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'm here today to debunk a few more untruths about what respectability are and their pertaining to the. My opponent seeks to do today, gentlemen, as I've said, is to deceive you. Make no mistake. This is deception. What channels through which prosperity and equity are most efficiently achieved? They presume to know to racial violence. As my partner stated so eloquently before, respectability politics is not about pandering or conforming to white or community norms. It's respectability politics are about taking an honest look at the state of ourselves and our loved ones and deciding to do more, to learn more, to be more. Our predecessors have fought and bled and died for there to even be a conversation about the possibility of respectability politics working for our community. It was out of the question until right now, until the time that we're in, for decades, for the sake of us to be on the stage having this conversation. And for us to recoil at the idea of respectability politics or the internalization of them as ludicrous, as ridiculous as an option. The irresponsibility knows no bounds. Sure, my opponent can cite individual instances of individuals that are seen as conventionally respectable being victims of racial violence. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is not what we are arguing here today. And any attempt to point your attention towards these events for the sake of passing them off as the truth of the potential of respectability politics is not only short-sighted and farcical, but it is simply put naive. We have seen time and time again our leaders and activists being abused, being killed, and them being the apotheosis of respectable, but never have we seen the unification and galvanization of higher ideals and make clear that we are attempting to be taken seriously. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a movement. A movement that can recontextualize the entire struggle of the modern black man and woman, that could redraw battle lines, eradicate stereotypes. What we call that, ladies and gentlemen, is a potential for progress, the bounds of which we could never know. Incredible progress. I would like to look again at the resolution we are unspooling here today, which states blacks should apply respect to response to violence. The crux of this resolution lies in one word, ladies and gentlemen. Our obligation as a community is to our own safety. Our duty lies in preserving and protecting the legacy that has been bestowed upon us, and our correctness is in refusing to close the potential doors of agency and security in our own faces before our enemies can do it for us. My partner mentioned earlier the idea of the ugly truth, ladies and gentlemen. And though in an ideal world, of course, a headstrong and insular posture may eventually result in those that would seek to harm us seeing the error of their ways, correct? And peace and tranquility descending on God and all his children. But that is not a world that we live in today. It is not a world that we can ever live in. And to not wholeheartedly and ferociously pursue every single method to protect the lives of ourselves and our children, to reject, and I think that it is, then logic states that the way in which it is achieved is auxiliary to the goal itself. We should do everything we can to achieve these goals, including the adoption of the values of respect and responsibility for our community and the image of our community. The Civil Rights Movement, the Black Panther Party, even the newly founded Black Lives Matter movement, all contain elements of respectability politics, despite what my opponents would have you believe. An intellectual and social cognizance among our brothers and sisters that can give rise to social change, whether it be in appearance, whether it be in rhetoric. All of these are viable options to achieve the goal of safety and security for ourselves. And to look upon disdain and say, no, wear that hoodie instead if it will get you killed, D'Aquarius. Wear that hoodie. It's a sad thought. It's a sad thought indeed. And my opponent went on to say that she would seek to raise the dreams and aspirations of our communities before she raises their parents. And what I have to ask you, Wally, we can do to achieve equity, to achieve tranquility, ladies and gentlemen. And to think otherwise will ultimately be to our detriment and to our destruction. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us now hear from the opposition their first rebuttal. Howard University.
The kind of trenchant racism to which black people have persistently been subjected can never be defeated by making its victims more respectable. The essence of American racism is disrespect. Howard Bison, Ta-Nehisi Coates. And that begins our argument. Hampton in the streets, but history has continued to prove that that will never happen. Let's begin in the 1920s with Black Wall Street, a thriving community that has been described as modern, majestic, and unapologetically black. And this community, the surrounding of which was all white, had hundreds of businesses, their own educational system, an entire life in society that excluded the white community. And what happened? In 1921, the white community surrounding them was so jealous of their success that they burned down the community. They burned down over 1,200 homes, 150 left 9,000 people homeless, and 300 African Americans of their skin. So to argue that somehow we can wear suits the way we dress can somehow get us out of racism, how somehow can change the trajectory of race in this country is simply wrong. Now let's move on to some more contemporary examples. We'll begin with Marquise Johnson, a University of Virginia member of Capitol own university police forces, just blocks away from his own school, pinned to the ground, beaten bloody. And why? Because he was an African American in a space that was considered largely white. Once again, another person who is respectable and yet subjected to racial violence. Finally, just last week, James Blake, a Harvard-educated top 10 tennis player, was attacked outside a hotel in Manhattan. Why? New York Police Department. We saw the video. They didn't ask him any questions. They didn't try to confirm his identity. They didn't try to make sure that they were arresting the right person. They went up to him and attacked him, pinned him, and tackled him to the ground for no other reason than he was a black man in a space where they deemed he did not belong. We cannot dress our way out of racism. We cannot pull ourselves up on our bootstraps against the racism of a majority of white society. So, suits, success, money, respectability politics will not save us. And that is the ugly truth. The only thing respectability politics serves to do, since it does combat racial violence, it serves to separate to being a proper black person. We deem just don't have the type of behaviors that we should promote and push within our black community. We don't hear the voices of the black poor whose experiences are valuable and true. We set values, we set rules and standards for them to even be listened to even be respected. The white majority society already doesn't respect us. The black community cannot afford to not respect ourselves. We have to value the experience of every person in our community, whether they sag their pants, whether they choose to dress in suits, or whether they don't. Their words, their experiences, all of that is valuable. And Hampton wants to undermine that, wants to say that what they experience in their everyday lives, the racism, the oppression, the didn't do enough to prove themselves to the majority society. Other. We need to build our community. We need to come together. Respectability politics only serves to marginalize the community and marginalize the voices of everyone within it. So finally, the basis of our argument is that white ideals is something that we should never try to accommodate ourselves to. Continuously says the arguments and base our own civil rights movements off of. But I argue that we shouldn't maintain the status quo. We should work to change the status quo. We shouldn't allow oppression to be the basis of what we allow ourselves to build up to. We shouldn't try to accommodate white society. We shouldn't try to assure that we shouldn't try to ensure we accommodate to the accepted.
So my opponent went on to say that we should not apply respectability politics and says that we should unionize and centralize, but she has not given any sort of other solution. So I was wondering if there was
that wasn't really a question, so if you want to...
They can be statements as well, actually. Can they not be statements, Mr. Moderator?
Please. Yes, please.
Can they not be statements, Mr. Moderator? They can. So as I said, she didn't proffer any sort of other solution. So I was curious to hear about that.
The solution to racial violence in this country is a current movement like matter. We can use nonviolent methods to move forward, but that doesn't mean we accommodate to their ideals and beliefs on who we should be, that we should change our hairstyles, that we should dress a certain way as if we are inherently deserve respect. We inherently deserve respect. And the basis of that begins by respecting ourselves, by respecting the voices of everyone within the Black community and understanding that they are all valuable. If we are separating ourselves, we cannot properly achieve racial equality in this country. Accepted.
So the question I asked was, in the resolution states, as a response to racial violence. So Black Lives Matter protesters are still falling victim to racial violence. So what is your solution to combat this racial violence? That is not answering the question.
The resolution, at the end of the day, the resolution asks us if we should use respectability violence. The side opposition argues that we should not, because that's continually proven to be ineffective. The resolution doesn't ask me to provide another solution, even though in a few seconds before I did provide another solution. Black Lives Matter is that solution in its modern form that doesn't engage in respectability politics. So once again, respectability politics is not going to be the answer to a society that has continued to systematically oppress us for centuries. And I've proven once again through the examples of Black Wall Street, through the examples of Martise Johnson, through the examples of James Blake, through my partner's examples of Henry Louis Skip Gates, the examples of President Barack Obama, the examples of former Attorney General Eric Holder. In all of these cases, Black individuals were targeted by racial violence, despite every effort against that, despite them being successful. That's our solution. We cannot accommodate to a white society that has continuously showed us that they are not willing to accept us as we are. I shouldn't have to prove myself to anyone to be respected. We all have a human dignity based off the Constitution of this country, that we are humans and we are equal, and I shouldn't have to fight to be equal in my own home. So, will respectability politics save us if it hasn't already?
Thank you. Thank you. We will now hear from the Leader of the Opposition, followed by the Prime Minister. Please proceed.
The ugly truth. Hampton brought up the ugly truth. The ugly truth cannot dress is the ugly truth. You see, the heart of racism and the heart of racial violence in America is racism. And the fact that as a Black individual you fail to realize that is disheartening. You see, a divided house cannot stand. And in 2015, we don't have time to argue how respectability politics should be applied in response to racial violence. You see, we told you time and time again why it does not work. You asked to give you an example. I ask you, did it work? When did respectability politics work? Why was Henry Louis Skip Gates arrested? respect that why Malcolm X killed. You see, all these respectable people in our community are still treated as what they are, black individuals. That's what we're always being. Help our community because divides us. You see, we must remember the African American values that got us slavery. The African that got us through Jim Crow. And the same values will be through the race that we experience in the 21st we focus on respectability politics, if we teach our children that they wear nicer shoes, that they won't be proud, if they wear slacks instead of jeans, they won't be racially proud. It's impossible for an African American being to do 20 off my. Do I deserve to be treated as any less of a being than my counterparts? I deserve to wear my warrior, and should I be treated as a thug? You see, respectability politics states that we must conform to societal values. And what societal values? The same societal values that has deemed us invaluable. The same societal values that allow the same societal values that allow African American males to be racially profiled 20 more times likely than a white counterpart. See, respectability politics does not save us because it does not stop that. We can't get up to change how white people feel about us. We cannot. Audition for a country that we win. We built this economy. We deserve to be as anybody else. I deserve to wear whatever because I am. You know, no matter how I am, it does not change how they think about me. It changes how I think about myself. Changes how I view my people. It does not change the society. It changes how Black America treats and values each other. Explain to me that if we separate ourselves, it does invaluable. If we have instance after instance of where I'm wearing, how would respectability politics save us? For these three reasons, Howard University does not support the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear University Prime Minister, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for the last speech. My opponent did a great job. She attempted to attack our case and also give a few of her own arguments. However, ladies and gentlemen, I will show you how her arguments are fallible. Now, she stated a lot of different things. She said there's two different societies, that it's conforming to society, that we dress up racism, that we separate our communities, that it's a divided house. Well, ladies and gentlemen, she's wrong. It's not a divided house. What respectability politics is trying to do is bring everybody together. It's trying to uplift the black community. We can influence our youth positively if we apply these respectability politics. Racism and racial profiling are alive and well today. Now, she said that we're trying to dress up racism. That's one, excuse me, we're not trying to
Give us respectability politics to uplift the community.
At Howard and at Hampton, they teach us how to dress respectably, right?
Well,
So-
how does that combat racial violence?
Please. Wait until she finishes her answer. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. No more rebuttals. No more. Please proceed, and I apologize.
okay. Respectability politics are not about complying to societal rules and keeping whites happy, but it's about us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to get you to understand that it's about uplifting blacks. As stated before, we practice these politics so that we can try to eradicate these stereotypes about our race, so that we can positively influence our youth, and most importantly, so that we can uplift our race. I don't see anything negative about the things that I just named. We have to remember realism. We all know that we're America. Racism has happened in the past, it's happening now, it's a widely known fact that it's something that we have to face. But ladies and gentlemen, we have to do something. We just can't do nothing. My opponents didn't even offer a solution. And shooting down solutions without offering one, that means you're part of the problem. My opponent never offered a solution. So therefore, their arguments still stand in my eyes. What is wrong? Is there respectably, dressing respectably, and acting respectably? Absolutely not. We need to teach our kids these aspects so that we can be a better society, so that we can survive as a society. As I stated, it's a solution that we're trying to do in order to lessen, it's a solution that we're trying to do in order to lessen racial violence. We have to do something, ladies and gentlemen. And as I say, we offered a solution. We have something. We just can't sit and do nothing. Debate. Urge that thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the first. We will now move to the second resolution. Second resolution states, hip-hop culture negatively influences African-American youth. I would ask Hampton University to indicate whether you support or oppose that resolution. You affirm. Hampton University will support the resolution. Mr. Prime Minister, please proceed with your first argument.
Good afternoon. My name is Caleb Woods. I'm a sophomore electrical engineering major.
If
from
I could
Greenville,
ask the
Mississippi.
audience, please, sir, if I could ask the audience to give him your attention. Please proceed.
I'm a sophomore electrical engineering major from Greenville, Mississippi. I'd like to start off with a quote. Quote, in fact, I would say musicians are supposed to be God's harmony department, but most of the time they're in discord and they're in disharmony, and they become commercial matter. But actually, music is what's supposed to keep people inspired and keep them seeing the invisible beauty of the mind and spirit. That's what music is for, end quote. That's from Herman Blunt, better known by Sun Ra. Now, hip-hop culture has evolved from the four tenets of MCing, DJing, graffiti, and breakdancing. Hip-hop changed from a hip new craze in the South Bronx to a globally reaching culture that is driven by rap music and the hold it has on today's youth. Bakari Katana says it well. Understanding the degree to which local and commercial are deeply and interdependent, one can begin to grasp the far-reaching effect of hip-hop the new black youth culture to a national audience. And in the same way as the mainstream media establishes the parameters for national discussion for the nation at large, rap music sets the tone for black youth. That's Katana 08, end quote. While it is true that hip-hop is something that we've created for ourselves as black men and women, while it is true that it's a form of peer-to-peer communication, that has become a large part of the shared black experience, as we begin to look at the way that hip-hop has evolved and the way that the culture has had an effect on black youth, we have to critically analyze rap music. Anyone who says that hip-hop doesn't have a negative impact on black youth has failed to do that analysis. As a matter of fact, that is usually where we fail ourselves in terms of looking at our own actions. We are so quick to cling to the things and the cultures that we have created for ourselves that we rarely stop to look at what it is that we're actually clinging to. A high school teacher, in an attempt to better relate his curriculum to the students, used hip-hop as the cornerstone for a social studies lesson plan. The completion of the project, he decided, quote, the project was a significant analysis of hip-hop culture and sometimes misogyny, violence, and glorification of drug culture. Again, because the aforementioned dynamics do not encapsulate all rap music, it becomes important to locate the popularity of the rap that does. Although the project grazed the issue, more is needed on how the marketing plans of record companies create a stylized, romanticized version of the music instead of critical analysis of the project. That's Stovall 2006, end quote. Today, I will focus in on misogyny, violence, and drug culture. Now, the late 90s in 1998. Quote, Back That Ass Up is a bounce-infected dance song on which Juvenile chants, girl, you looks good once you back that ass up. Other tracks were more clearly rooted in the gangster ethic of drug selling and violence. For example, on the song Gon' Ride With Me, Juvenile raps, my 9 is gonna die with me, pick up the supply with me. Finally, on the hit, Juvenile seemingly long your gang. As the goes, end quote. Now, this is one of the most influential and popular tapes of this era, giving birth to a new sound in Southern rap. While this shows the reach of that one tape, there's a myriad of evidence towards the overall influence of hip-hop on social norms. Before hip-hop, Timberland boots were actually just work boots meant to get dirty. Now Timberland boots are something to keep clean and be stylish in. The trend doesn't stop there. Sports jerseys were simply fan attire before Southern hip-hop made them into a fashion statement. Boots, Jordan shoes, Ciroc vodka, backwards fitted, more. It's detrimental to the black community. Moving on to misogyny. Since slavery, there have been tropes created for black women. Michelle Wallace characterizes them, quote, sapphire, mammy, workhorse, end quote. Of course, there were more, but since the commercialization of hip-hop and the introduction of rap music in the mainstream American culture, the amount of stereotypes has exploded, seemingly increasing exponentially with each new rap trend. According to Joan Morgan, we can, quote, add the following 90s manifestations to Wallace's mix. Ghetto bitch, project hoe, welfare queen, gold skis, baby, mama chicken head, ball buster, too independent, no man, waiting to exhale, Earth, Nubian queen, the ultimate mother, down. Claire Huxtable, mother of 5, Shaniqua, a decade younger than Claire, and mother of 6. Loud as hell, silent and suffering, not whiny like a white girl, paid, poor, poor, poor. That's Morgan 99, end quote. Now, one cannot say that the evolution of black women's tropes was not brought on by black men in rap, inserting this rampant misogyny into our quickly evolving culture. As rap continues to change, one thing that has remained is the overall disrespect for the black woman. Looking at rap lyrics since the beginning of the 90s, it's become evident that the objectification and disrespect of women is a trend that is still on the upswing. This damages the community because of the aforementioned tension that is rising between black men and black women. By splitting the black community down gender lines, we continue to keep Willie Lynch relevant. Moving on to violence. In order to analyze the impact that hip-hop has had on violence within the black community, we have to look at the ways in which hip-hop has normalized violence. First, let us look at the beginnings of gangster rap. With NWA and contemporary gangster art, the art form was a reflection of the reality that the art was going on in the black community. However, as rap became more and more prevalent as a commercial art form, the gangster genre evolved. Taking a look at the NWA biopic Straight Outta Compton, we open the movie with a scene swathed in drug-related violence. From gangster rap was birthed trap and drill. In the community, men and women began to glorify the violent actions that were happening in their cities, even confessing the violent crimes in their songs. Reported on the Huffington Post earlier this year was a case that included the lyrics of a rapper that were used as evidence against him. Quote, prosecutors in the trial used Heron's gangster rap videos in which he boasts about belonging to the infamous Blood Street gang, firing weapons and dealing drugs to argue the lyrics documented his crimes. That's Huffington Post 2015, end quote. Now, he was sentenced to 12 years of life in prison, 12 terms of life in prison, plus 105 extra years on top of that. Now, while that is an isolated case, it does a good job of depicting the normalization of the things that are detrimental to a community. The prevalence of violence close to home has changed from a sign that things need to change to just a statement. Some even take pride in the violence in the community. Now, while my state from Green, Mississippi, the jokes I'm playing over the summer, I showed one of my friends the police report, and all he replied with was, at least he was about the action. So as we continue to take a look at the way that hip-hop culture has had an effect on our youth, we can see that young black men and women have been desensitized to that sensation of violence. If something is normal to us, then why would we try to change it? Moving on to drugs. Violence not only intersects with misogyny, but it has a large intersection with drug culture. Empirically speaking, the drug trade comes with violence. Much like how rap and hip-hop normalize violence within the community, Rap and hip hop normalized drug use in the black community. Genre of rap based around the economy of illegal drugs. All new artists have based their whole persona around one of addiction and dependency. Future, a high-profile artist from Atlanta, played at Hampton last weekend. Future is still riding high off the release of his last album, Dirty Sprite 2, the name of which references the recreational drug lean. At this concert, Future performed to a crowd of college-aged, mainly black youth.
Would you please conclude your comments?
All right. Now, Black America, community images of drugs, we will over time become desensitized to the presence within our neighborhoods. That is not a hypothetical situation. Rather, that is what we have seen happen since the commercialization of hip-hop.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would ask now the leader of the opposition to come.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a junior finance major from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the topic of this debate is hip-hop. We define hip-hop as the culture that promotes our social, cultural, and political viewpoints on how we perceive reality, how we perceive our reality, our culture, things that impact who we are, our individual stories. So with that, we strongly negate the resolution, which is hip-hop culture negatively influences African-American youth, for these 3 points. 1, hip-hop is a reflection of our youth's reality. A mechanism to provide for us to express who we are. The House supported the idea that hip-hop is commercialized. It evolved into something that's been created by the media. What was brought up, it's misogynistic, it's violent, it promotes heterosexism, sexism. But my response to that, on the con argument, is hip-hop culture is a part of who we are. It defines our reality. You cannot say hip-hop is negative. By saying hip-hop culture is negative, you say our culture is negative. You say who we are as individuals is negative. F the Police was used as a response to police brutality from NWA, if we want to look at Straight Outta Compton. Silencing our voice and censoring who we are as individuals takes away our liberties. You can look at Cop Killer by Ice-T. In those times, it was used to lift and liberate our generation. The next point is focus on what hip-hop is a response to. Institutional oppression, racism, poverty.
My partner with drugs and the drug industry. A majority of Davis's musical subject matter relates to the drug trade and the violence that accompanies it. On the song Darker, he raps, "I can hold the block down and push the rock like Sean Carter. Holding the block down is simply a euphemism for handling your business on the streets, whether that be fighting and all the way up the ladder to murder. And pushing the rock." With trap music being on a breakout subgenre, from above the Mason-Dixon is right behind trap as far as breakout subgenres within rap. Violence in their community, but it's not a report on it, as my opponent likes to state. This is rap lines such as spent that 100 on my Air Force Ones just to stomp a nigga in these Air Force Ones, and other violent lines, most of which including his liberal use of guns. You encounter the same problem with the black youth, which further normalizes this atrocious violence and leads to a culture something along the lines of, at least he was about the action. The aforementioned trap music. As stated before, trap music harkens to just to name a couple, the subject matter of their music constantly expressing drug usage, drug dependence, drug trade, and drug addiction. My partner discussed the rapidly album whose title already Well, what I'm arguing is hip hop negatively affecting black youth, because not necessarily through a glorification, but a normalization. Because you see, celebrity culture in America tends to place a lot and that's what becomes normal to them. So now I'm going to continue. The album Dirty Sprite 2, an album whose title already harkens back to the dangerous recreational drug lean, purple drink, scissor, whatever it is where you're from. That word's been mentioned a couple times now, so I feel like everyone part soda and activists also contain active ingredients, codeine and now then you may remember lean from medical investigation done. As my partner stated, Future came and performed at our university last 1,000 copies in its first 2 weeks, which topped the Billboard Top 200 charts. Each of the three preceding mixtape, Beast Mode, Monster, 56 Nights, all had over 125,000 downloads on popular site hotnewhiphop.com. So all of these songs like Codeine Crazy, Percocet, and Stripper Joint, I Serve the Bass, these are all reaching hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, kids. Because for your time, I've been Quentin Burnett.
Thank you. Let us now hear the first rebuttal.
I would like to first thank you all for being here today, to Hampton for engaging in this intellectual conversation with us, to the real HU, thank you for your continued support, for being here today, and for everything that we do. You adults in the crowd as well. So I would please ask, like with all respect, that you all refrain from using profanity, because if you want to apply respectability politics, let's be respectable and be respectful of the people.
What is your point of information?
So are you saying
point
that
of information in the first minute of the debate?
First minute? She was in the first minute?
No, I haven't stated
Okay.
anything yet.
You'd have to wait then. Please.
Opposition firmly negates the resolution that states that hip-hop culture negatively influences African American youth. Now, we define hip-hop as a culture of urban communities that manifests character and breakdown. A few things. So, side government first says that record companies is the issue. Influence on African American youth, not the actual dancing, the actual emceeing, about the separation of color in our community. And I'm sure that we team brown skin, and that is a part of our community. So although hip-hop does speak on this, hip-hop also hip-hop shows to these girls and to these young America. This community. Different types, but the topic about within the topic and what we're really arguing. Then side government speaks on violence and on drugs and violence. And we do understand that that hip-hop has negative influences on the community. No one is saying that hip-hop does not at some point, just like the books that you read, just like the lesser mediums that you choose to deny, that you choose to entertain.
She said deny.
Right. So it also speaks on decent in the such as Kanye West to a 3 points. And my first point is hip-hop tells the story of generations. Hip-hop embraces black hip-hop since it was born in 19. His goal was then, and the goal of hip-hop stand alone in their struggles. Any youth from any background, more commonly the inner city urban youth, are able to listen to these songs such as God Bless Another Trap, and others in their community show you the struggles of this society. Let me show you what can happen when you embracing this. That's the purpose of hip hop. Hip hop is also our poetic justice. Hip hop, African American youth, what is going on, to show each other what is going on. We have songs such as which was a lot of you have heard about, especially in the movie Straight Outta Compton, that stayed on top of the movie charts for 4 weeks straight. Part of hip hop culture was because world that yes, there is police brutality, and yes, there is a here for expressing themselves, and that is a right. You also have songs that close to
Audience,
the edge, not to lose my head. The ability of the people in this room who have not grown up in the same community, same city, nor in the same state, the ability to come together on. If you listen to the beginning of that song, let's talk about ratchets being in the front and cockroaches being in the back. This hip hop is our Bronx Renaissance. Hip hop is the ability that says if hip hop has the ability to corrupt young minds, it also has the ability to society. It also creates a standard of lifting as we climb. We help society. No, you do not have to conform, but yes, you do. We have songs such as I Know I Can. Not gonna sing this one. Oh, okay. So we have songs that you can be what you want to be if you work hard. Queen Latifah. These are all examples of how we express our we use our freedom of expression.
Please close your comments.
Okay, we use our freedom of expression.
Please close your comments. The 5 seconds. No more time.
It's over.
I would ask the
every other influence in society. By doing that, you're proving or trying to cause. However, she was unable to articulate that, so I articulated is how what they don't understand. However, the artist is expressing what our culture is going through in terms of being pimped. They have the media, they have different platforms. However, all we have is hip hop. All we have is our stories. All we have is the we have. So once you take that from what was not stated and what was dropped as an argument is that hip hop is a whole global movement. This is the meat of the case and the meat of the argument. And look at the inspirations they have created because they had a gateway out of poverty. You can look to artists giving thousands of dollars to schools, creating thousands of dollars. Recreate the Black Wall Street. Where would Jay-Z be? Where would our culture stand? How would we voice our concerns? How would we articulate who we are as individuals? We wouldn't, because this is the only platform that we have. If you look at the argument about drugs and violence and misogyny, the argument was dropped that rap is the reflection of our youth's lives and not the other way around. Hip-hop does not negatively influence our youth. Hip-hop is the stories of our youth. So when you say hip-hop negatively influences Americans, you say our youth's lives are negative. At the cause of that, if you look at the argument, the very first point that I made, our youth's lives are negative. You detract away from the real problem, the violence amongst who And with that being said, I would like to extend my original 3 arguments of why we negate the resolution that hip-hop culture negatively influences our African-American youth, which is 1, hip-hop, which is shown through the art form to through educational disparities, through racism, through police brutality. Here, we actually side opposition strongly negates the resolution, which is hip-hop culture negatively influences African American youth.
All right, so as a roadmap, so on violence. Now, women especially have been affected by the rise of normacy of violence. Sapphire has now become the gangster girl who is equally as violent as her male peers. Sapphire also provides comic relief. As Tyler Perry's character Medea. She is a pistol-packing grandmother who is frequently depicted rolling. Intersection of violence and misogyny. Moving on to pure misogyny, let's revisit Kitwana. He says that, quote, album after album was littered with rap songs referring to black women as B. He goes on to say that the very misogynist, antagonistic depictions of black women in a music form dominated by black males reflect the extension of tension brewing between young black men and women. That's Kitwana Oye, end quote. As long as we allow for the negative or background depictions of black women in hip-hop, we will see that disconnect between black men and black women. Just looking at social media trends, we can see this disconnect play out in ugly spats. It is acceptable. Drug culture is not something that we need to let make it into our everyday lives. When we see drug trade and addiction, it's trap music normalizes the salient economics of drug, and artists like Future and Travis Scott normalize the addiction. As I said, it has evolved. Hip-hop is a reflection of our youth's reality. That's what it started out as. However, now it is a normalization of those things that were once being reported on. They're saying that hip-hop is global now. And that actually doesn't make it any less normalization of violence for young. Saying that youth is negatively affected is not and the effect that it has on youth, not any of the other influences, okay? So any of hip-hop, the debate is about rap. It can do all those things. It can create new avenues. It creates artistic mediums. How of drug culture, saying that if you trap, that God will bless you.
Please.
Not every, I'll allow it. They said that hip hop is all that we have, but then people created rock and roll. Black people created jazz. Black people created blues. Black people have driven popular culture in America. And they've also dropped all of our contentions about misogyny. They dropped violence, and they
Thank you. Now, would you please...
We're going to make this quickly so that you can get to the other events, but I would just like to thank everyone for attending, definitely our presidents for these distinguished universities. Thank you, University. HU, with the debaters staying in his hands as a token of debaters. And it says the HU debate of 2015, Hampton University versus Howard University.
We're going to get the group.